Moments later, my AP yanked me onto the bed, urgency in every motion. We didn't bother with the usual pretense. I just lifted my skirt and it was over as quickly as it began. It always felt like some secret mission, like we were undercover agents in a high-stakes operation. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The door burst open, not gently, not with hesitation, but violently. A thunderous crash followed. My AP flew through the air and hit the floor hard. I was still lying there, stunned, the remnants of what we'd just done clinging to the air like perfume and sweat. I blinked, heart thundering, trying to comprehend what had just happened, and then I saw him. My husband. He stood over the crumpled form of my AP, his figure backlit by the neon light spilling in from the city outside. The room was dim, cloaked in secrecy and regret. The man I'd betrayed stood still, his chest rising steadily, his hands clenched, his gaze fixed on me. His silence was more terrifying than any scream. This wasn't about passion anymore. It never really had been. It was just a habit. An escape. One that had now been violently shattered. The door hadn't creaked open. It had exploded inward. And the noise? It wasn't shouting. It was the sickening sound of knuckles colliding with flesh. A sharp crack. Then the pressure atop me vanished, yanked away like a curtain. I gasped as my AP hit the floor with a painful groan. My pulse was erratic. I turned my head slowly, and that's when I saw the shadow standing in the doorway. My husband's expression was eerily calm. Unsettlingly so. His knuckles were flexing, but he didn't say a word. Our eyes locked. For the first time since the affair began, I felt true bone-deep fear. No accusations. No angry outburst. Just silence and a look that said everything. I opened my mouth. To explain? To beg? I wasn't sure. But nothing came out. Behind him the door clicked shut. A simple sound, yet it felt final. I flinched when he finally spoke. Get up. His voice was steady. Too steady. My AP groaned on the ground, trying to lift himself. My husband didn't even glance at him. I said get up. The same tone. Cold. Measured. I scrambled to gather my clothes, hands trembling uncontrollably. My lungs barely worked, every breath a labor. I wanted to run, but my body refused to move properly. My instincts screamed danger, not from a man scorned, but from a man who had already decided what came next. And that was far more terrifying. The room was suffocating. Every second stretched, the silence growing louder. From the floor, my AP whimpered again, clutching his face. He blinked up at us in disbelief. What the F? He never finished. My husband stepped forward and drove his foot into his ribs. The sound it made was horrifying. My AP curled into himself, gasping like a wounded animal. This wasn't impulsive. It wasn't wrath. It was surgical. My husband had always been a planner. A thinker. And I knew in that instant he was following a script. One I didn't know the ending to. Please, I started, but he looked at me, just a flick of his eyes, and I went silent again. He turned back to the man on the floor. Get up. The bastard didn't respond. Another kick square in the gut. A choked retch escaped his lips. He tried to crawl away, but my husband crouched, grabbed him by the hair, and yanked his head up. You like putting your hands on someone else's wife? His voice was almost too calm, like a doctor delivering a diagnosis. My AP stammered. My husband slammed his head into the floor. The sound made me flinch. Get dressed. I didn't need to be told twice. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely pull my clothes on. My mind was spinning, desperate to find some kind of plan, some kind of exit. But I already knew, this wasn't leading to a conversation. He wasn't taking me somewhere to talk. He was taking me away. And I had no idea where, or why. My AP coughed again, barely lifting his head. Man, listen, Another punch silenced him. His head jerked to the side. He hit the floor and didn't get up. My husband adjusted his sleeves like nothing had happened, then looked at me. He tilted his head. Let's go. Where? My voice was barely audible. He smiled. And that smile, not warm, not reassuring, just knowing, chilled me to the core. He reached out, took my wrist. Not harshly, but firmly. The message was clear. I wasn't in charge of anything anymore. Move. My heart hammered as he led me out of the room, leaving the other man groaning on the floor. He didn't try to get up. Maybe he realized it was safer that way. As we stepped into the hallway, it hit me, he hadn't lost control. This wasn't chaos. It was strategy. And I had no idea what came next. Please, just let me explain, I whispered. He didn't answer. Just kept walking. And suddenly I knew. I was heading straight toward whatever consequences he had already chosen. I shivered. Not here. That meant he had somewhere else in mind, someplace specific. We stepped out of the house and the night air bit into my skin like frost. My husband opened the passenger door of his car and motioned for me to get in. My breathing quickened. I could run, turn and bolt down the street screaming for help. But then I looked at his face. No, that wouldn't work. He wasn't the type to chase me like some unhinged maniac. He didn't need to. He'd just wait. And what came next would be far worse. So I got in. The door closed behind me with a quiet, final click. A moment later he was behind the wheel, starting the engine. Silence. City lights blurred past the windows as he drove. My hands gripped the fabric of my skirt, my knuckles white. I wanted to speak, to beg, but some deep instinct told me it would be useless. Then I saw where we were headed. My stomach dropped. He pulled into the parking lot of a restaurant. Not just any restaurant, but the one where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. The place where he'd once taken my hand, looked me in the eye, and vowed to always love me. He parked, turned off the engine, and for the first time since we'd left the house, looked directly at me. "Get out," he said. I hesitated. "Why?" His voice grew sharp. I said get out. I did as I was told. Inside the restaurant was bustling. The dim lighting cast shadows across elegant tables, silverware clinked, and a low murmur of conversation filled the air. This was a place for love. For celebration. And he had brought me here to end it all. A waiter greeted us. "Good evening, sir. Table for two." "We have a reservation," my husband replied, placing a hand on the small of my back. "I made it a week ago." My breath caught. A week ago. He had known. My stomach twisted. The waiter led us to a table in the center of the room, not discreetly tucked away, not by a wall, center stage. He pulled out a chair for me. I sat, heart pounding in my ears. He sat across from me, composed, calm. Then he took out his phone and placed it on the table, screen facing up. The words on the screen made my blood run cold. Live recording. Streaming to group chat. I looked around and saw them. Familiar faces. His friends, coworkers, my family, my friends. All seated at nearby tables, pretending to enjoy their meals, but their eyes gave them away. They knew. They were watching. And so were the people on the live stream. My throat went dry. He leaned in, voice low. "Now," he said, tilting his head slightly, "tell me again, how long have you been fucking him?" The noise of the restaurant faded, replaced by the loud, deafening thump of my heartbeat. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "No answer?" he asked gently. I swallowed hard. "Please?" "How long?" The entire restaurant had gone silent. Even those not in on the plan were staring now, forks frozen midair, eyes fixed on me. The shame was unbearable. I could have lied, denied it, but the look in his eyes told me that would be a mistake I wouldn't survive. 6 months, I whispered. He didn't flinch. Just nodded like he'd already known. Of course he had. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black USB drive, setting it on the table beside the phone. He tapped it twice with his finger. "I had cameras installed last month," he said like he was talking about the weather. "Not just in the bedroom. Living room. Kitchen. Even the garage. Dozens of recordings. Dozens of clips of you sneaking him in while I was at work." Cold sweat slid down my back. "Did you ever stop to think? Ever hesitate? Or did you just assume I was a clueless fool?" Tears stung my eyes. I never meant to." "Don't," he snapped. "Don't insult me with, 'I never meant to.'" I said nothing. He leaned back in his chair, tapping the USB again. "I've got all the proof I need. But that's not the best part." He reached into his pocket once more and pulled out a folded document. A divorce agreement. He slid it across the table. "Already signed by me," he said. "Had my lawyer draft it weeks ago. Take a look, you'll notice a few key details." My hands trembled as I picked up the paper. My vision blurred as I scanned it. The house, gone. Bank accounts, frozen. My car, his name. Even my job, his connection had gotten me hired, which meant I wouldn't last there long either. "I could take this to court," he said. "Show a judge the footage. Make sure you get nothing. I could send it to your boss, your family. Post it online." He tapped the USB again, then smiled. "But I'm giving you one chance. Sign the papers. Pack your things. Be gone by tomorrow morning. Do that and it stays between us. But fight me? Make this ugly?" He leaned forward, voice soft, menacing. "I'll make sure you have nowhere to go." I sat there frozen, humiliated beyond anything I'd ever imagined. Everything I thought I had was gone. My hands shook as I picked up the pen lying next to the documents. And with the eyes of the entire restaurant on me, with my betrayal turned into a public spectacle, I signed my name. He stood, buttoned his jacket, collected the USB in his phone, and walked away without another word. I remained, a hollow shell, destroyed, knowing the nightmare was only just beginning. But this wasn't the end. As she crumbled, I knew I wasn't finished. What she felt now, that was just the surface. She had lost her security, her reputation, her so-called love affair. But that wasn't enough. The recordings had already made their way through the right channels. Her family, ashamed and furious, disowned her. Her employer, once supportive, quietly let her go. A moral clause buried deep in her contract sealed her fate. The real masterpiece, though, was the financial devastation. I'd been working behind the scenes for weeks, transferring assets, shutting down joint accounts, sealing the settlement so tightly she'd never find a loophole. When she tried to contest it, she discovered the truth. She'd already signed it all away. Arrogance had blinded her. She called me once, voice trembling. "Please, can we talk?" I smiled, cold, sharp. "We just did." Then I hung up. That was the last time I ever heard from her. And me? I walked away with my head held high, my future untouched, and my past exactly where it belonged, buried in the wreckage of her own choices.